public hearing to consider amending and reordaining ordinance number MCS 4264 as amended by ordinance number 26413 MCS as amended, the comprehensive zoning ordinance of the City of New Orleans, to consider amending the permitted and conditional use tables in Article 14's Suburban and Neighborhood Districts, Table 14-1, S-LM designation, to disallow the following residential uses currently allowed in the S-LM district: dwelling above the ground floor, dwelling townhouse, dwelling multiple family, group home, small, group home, large, permitted supportive housing, and directing and granting the City Planning Commission staff the flexibility to make all appropriate changes relative to this request to ensure consistency and continuity, and to make needed and or appropriate adjustments deemed necessary stemming from the study and review of this request in the process of studying and reviewing the proposal amendments.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I'll move for approval.
We have
and then we have two comments. I know.
Oh, all right.
I got it. We got a couple comment cards too. All right. So Mr. Marcella, Mr. Burnside, and then I know we have some online comments. Mr. Marcella, I know you've been there patiently.
Well, I guess I'm assuming there would have been like a few comments first, but I'll get started here. From what I've seen, I just don't think this is going to be a full solution to the problems we got created now when we rezoned the area to mixed use back in 2015. And my suggestion is that we be allowed to go to the Planning Commission to return the FLUM, the Future Land Use Master Plan, and the zoning back to park for the area. If the goal is restaurants, there's no need to have zoning that allows for retail, commercial, single-term residence, housing, gaming, whatever. We can do that by keeping it as a park in the zoning. If you do build a retail center there, it seems like you might need housing for the employees that are be there, so why eliminate the housing in this? We had Parks and Parkways recently had a lot of meetings. There was a need for more green space and parks and recreation. We've suggested that this park would be best used for that, to retain the green space. The other thing is I've been able to go to the parish of Jefferson Parish and speak. We've got most of it all cleaned up, and it'd be nice to see an item that authorized the mayor to ask the state to repair the retention wall at the lake, because then we could start using this. There's a bike path right there. If we repurpose Breakwater Drive that would connect from the Jefferson Parish along the lake up out to the point. So that's, and I know some people wanted to make online comments this morning. They may have sent them to Paul because it was not working. That's it. I'm done.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Burnside.
Mr. Burnside said this too often. Nobody's going to believe me, but Mr. Burnside's an idiot. I didn't catch the word disallow until somebody read it out loud. I wasn't going to make any comments at all. For me, affordable housing is more than a crisis. It's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for community. It's an opportunity for people who are poor to participate in the life and where they work and live where they work. And take advantage of the amenities that are available to the environment in which they work. So for me, to have the dwelling above the ground as disallowed is not something that I can come on board with or agree to, ever. In my opinion, the French Quarter should be required to have human beings living on the third and fourth floor in order to even have a commercial use on the first. A lot of money is made in this town, and a lot of money leaves this town, and very few people who stay in this town benefit from some of the choices that we make in these chambers. So for me, putting things together are sort of my only hope for a better future. And I want affordable housing. I want workforce housing. As I understood the term, which I was told at the board meeting for Nora, I was wrong, and I learned, and I was sad. But I want poor people to have access to a good life. And part of poor people having access to a good life is not spending an hour one way on the interstate to get to work and then spending another hour on the interstate to get home and not even live in the parish in which they work. And for that to be accomplished, elevators are a key to success. You let poor people live somewhere. For as has been said in this chamber, they too are children of God, and they too are loved by the Lord, and they too have the right to a life that is worth living. And they too deserve help from a democratically elected set of representatives. And obviously I'm talking to two people, so I'll shut up and sit down.
All right, Ms. Curran.
Has been charged by the city to use of the area. Approval, then you can decide house population of increasing housing density, allowing permanent supportive housing with disabilities and other housing types. Unhoused population of New Orleans. The other comment is from Sam Levin, who says, we constantly hear this council talk about the importance of long-term housing and helping the unhoused population of New Orleans. Now we see a motion that is doing the exact opposite by removing facilities that provide housing and supportive services for homeless persons with disabilities and other housing types. If we actually care about the rising cost of housing and the unhoused population, we would be increasing housing density, allowing permanent supportive housing in more neighborhoods, and using multitude of other methods to increase the housing supply in the city, such as allowing ADUs, decreasing bulk yard requirements, decreasing parking requirements, and more. I hope the fair housing advocates that are here are willing to voice their displeasure for this elimination of housing as quickly as they are when it supports council members' agendas.
Thank you. All right, so first of all, let's start with this. I don't wake up in the morning rooting for luxury condos or penthouses. I don't think that's the type of housing that we're interested in. And with all candor, if there was going to be an effort to house either homeless or people with disabilities or affordable, that would have happened more than 18 years ago, and it hasn't. For more than 18 years, the West End neighborhood hosted commercial and recreational activity, and I know for a fact the neighbors have been very concerned about a proposed high-rise project called the Pearl that not only would have been very tall, but also would have sat overneath, or on top of, rather, the waterway. Restoring West End has been an economic development goal for the last several years. The city, state, and Jefferson Parish have been working very hard on this effort, and I would remind everybody that this area has been a heavily commercial concern from the turn of the century until Hurricane Katrina, and not one for residents. The text amendment seeks to tailor future redevelopments on West End by eliminating future residential projects. As required in CZO, I held an NPP meeting on May 16th. Obviously appreciate all the neighbors and people who showed up. I will tell you, of the roughly 75 to 80 people who participated, a super majority were in favor of this. So with that, I'll move for approval. I think I already did that, and it's been seconded. Oh, go again. All right, moved. Second by Councilmember Green.
What's going on here?
5 yeas, no nays. Thank you.
We're now on top of page 50.
Where Councilman Giarrusso is erring is, as you can see on these two drawings, and let me just turn this off here. Where Councilman Giarrusso is erring is, he says that he had a supermajority oppose housing in the area. Well, like 95% of the people came back saying they don't want housing, commercial, retail, they don't want anything. It's a park. And you can see that the image on the top shows that it used to be all classified as green space. The state still recognizes it as green space per their lease to the city of New Orleans. New Orleans, in the lower image, back in 2015, rezoned part of the area, that gray spot, to be mixed use, which allows for housing, retail, and commercial. So he is trying to create a special situation here because you can't have, you either go one way or the other in the city of New Orleans. You either have a zoning that is mixed use, but you don't have mixed use that prohibits for housing. So the residents, yeah, they don't want housing, but they want their park, they want recreation, they want it to be part of a wildlife sanctuary. There's pelicans, eagles, turtles, there's everything along the lake that is in those trees. So they want the trees saved. Councilman Giarrusso wants to cut down these heritage oak trees and put commercial there. And where he's wrong is, he said this was an area of commercial activity for 100 years. It was actually over the water, and that's that white spot at the top that's actually Jefferson Parish. Where the green ends becomes Jefferson Parish. So all of that economic activity was actually in Jefferson Parish. And up until the 70s, there was a car bridge to access that. And that way, and then they had a pedestrian bridge and allowed people to get drunk and leave those bars, cross back into Jefferson Parish and not have to deal with NOPD. So it's also a very complicated situation, and that bridge doesn't exist anymore. So the things have changed since Katrina. You don't have the two accesses in, you only have one. And Joe Giarrusso is not thinking about those factors. He's not thinking about the factor that now we have realized we have overdeveloped, we need more trees, we need recreation, pickleball, whatever. And unfortunately, he is looking at an economic development activity in a park, and we really need to be saving our parks. And that's what's happened in the first half of this year in meetings with Park and Rec and NORD, the need for recreation, the need for open space. And it's in the master plan in New Orleans that we need to prioritize retaining our open space and our parks.